I'm Grayson, and this whole thing is about the dumbest mess I've ever put myself in. I was dating this girl, Addison. We'd been together for 2 years, living together for 6 months. On paper, it looked like a win. She was pretty. She had that magnetic personality where every room seemed to light up when she walked in, and she could make even a boring Tuesday night feel like something out of a movie. I'm not going to lie, I thought I hit the jackpot at first. The first couple months were smooth. She was funny, affectionate, and yeah, she had that girlfriend experience down pat. She'd make breakfast sometimes, drag me out to social events, brag about me to her friends. I remember thinking, okay, this could be long-term. But there was always this shadow hanging around. His name was Luke, 27, male, her ex. And before any guy even asks, no, I didn't miss the red flags. I saw them. I just thought I could outclass him by ignoring it. Big mistake. Addison gave me the classic lines early on. Luke and I go way back. We've got too much history to just cut him out completely. He's more like family now. Sure, family. The kind of family that sends you up, texts at midnight. Totally wholesome. One time, I actually asked, half joking, so if he's family, does that make Thanksgiving dinner weird? Should I bring him mashed potatoes or a restraining order? She rolled her eyes and said, you're overthinking it. Of course, because clearly, the issue was my brain cells working too hard, not her ex still orbiting like a clingy satellite. At first, I told myself not to overthink it. I'm not the jealous type, and I've always hated those dudes who freak out every time their girlfriend's phone buzzes. You know, the ones sweating bullets at a group dinner because some guy from work liked her photo on Instagram. I wasn't going to be that clown. So, when Addison would get a late-night text from Luke or hop on a quick call, I brushed it off. She'd roll her eyes and say, relax. He's just checking in. Yeah, checking in, like he's her parole officer. But checking in turned into always around. Guys don't accidentally orbit like that unless they're testing doors to see which one's unlocked. I should have deadbolt the social door right there. But, you know, for a while I did relax. I told myself, don't be the jealous idiot, Grayson, play it cool, be the guy who trusts his girl. Meanwhile, I'm practically handing out guest passes to my relationship like it's a public swimming pool. Here's the thing about letting little stuff slide, it adds up. Luke had this weird habit of just happening to be around. Like we'd be at a bar with friends, and boom, there's Luke. Oh, I didn't know you guys came here, he'd say, like we'd all just time-traveled back to 2008 and ran into him at a mall food court, right? Totally normal for your ex to show up at the same dive bar every other weekend. Sure thing, buddy. Then came the group settings. Friends hanging out, game nights, movie marathons, you name it. It was like Luke had VIP access to Addison's calendar. The guy would slide into the seat next to her like it was assigned seating. Laugh at all her jokes like she was headlining a Netflix comedy special. And then he'd throw out these little comments like, remember when we used to come here? Stuff only meant for her ears, but loud enough for mine. It wasn't subtle. That wasn't nostalgia. That was territory marking. Guys don't say I remember when to stroll down memory lane. They say it to remind you there was a time before you. Like he's senior staff, and I'm the unpaid intern still learning where the stapler is. Addison, of course, shrugged it off every single time. That's just Luke, she'd say, like it was the weather forecast. Oh, don't mind him. Just a 70% chance of ex-boyfriend showers later tonight. I'd bring it up, and she'd laugh. This little dismissive chuckle that worked like a reset button. Every time I raised the issue, boom, she hit the laugh, and suddenly the whole thing was off the table. Topic tossed like a penalty flag. Picked up. No foul. That's how small stuff becomes normal. Meanwhile, I'm watching this dude orbit her like a lost planet trying to get pulled back into her gravity, and she was letting it happen. I let it slide because I thought Addison was worth it. I thought she'd eventually draw the line herself. I told myself I didn't need to waste my energy on some washed-up ex. That was mistake number 1. Luke wasn't just hanging around. He was testing boundaries like a raccoon checking trash cans for weak lids. And Addison, she was either too blind or too selfish to care. Then came the night where the mask slipped. Addison and I were sitting in the living room. Nothing dramatic, just a regular weeknight. She put her phone down, looked over, and asked casually, too casually, hey, do you mind if Luke comes over sometime? Just to hang out. I didn't even blink. No, not happening. Her face tightened like I'd just canceled Christmas. She sat up straighter, voice sharper. Luke will be here whenever I say. So, and you'll just have to live with it. We have long history. Now pause right there. Any guy hearing this, imagine your girlfriend saying that with a straight face. Like her ex is just going to be chilling in your living room, putting his feet up on your coffee table, maybe grabbing a beer from your fridge because she says so. That's not a red flag. That's the full parade. Marching band, baton twirlers, clowns, and fireworks display all at once. I laughed, Not because it was funny, but because the audacity was Olympic-level insane. Then I told her flat out, no, not happening. Not. He doesn't come in my house. You want to see him? Fine. Coffee shop, park bench, bus stop, DMV waiting line. Heck, rent a storage unit for all I care. But not here. This is my house, and around here, we play by my rules. She looked at me like I'd just kicked her dog, and then lit her Pinterest board on fire for warmth. You're being ridiculous, Grayson. Luke's part of my life. If you can't accept that, maybe you're not cut out for a serious relationship. I smirked. Serious relationship? Addison, you're trying to turn my apartment into a timeshare. That's not serious. That's stupid. And if Luke is really that sacred to you, then fantastic news. The door works both ways. You're free to pack your bags, waltz out, and continue your little history project. Think of it as museum work, preserving fossils. Her arms crossed tight across her chest, the universal sign for brace yourself, incoming nonsense. Wow, you're really going to act threatened by a guy I dated years ago? That's pathetic. Threatened? I laughed. No, see, I'm not threatened. I just don't let leftovers eat at my table. She scoffed, her voice going up an octave like she was auditioning for a soap opera. You're so controlling. You want to decide who I can and can't see. Wrong again, I said, shaking my head. You can see whoever you want, just not from my couch while they're holding my remote. Her face twisted like she'd just bitten into a lemon. You're twisting this to make me the bad guy, like I did something wrong. Did something wrong? I leaned in a little, smiling. You're literally inviting your ex into my home and then acting like I'm the problem for noticing. That's not a relationship, Addison. That's a circus. And Luke's your clown. Her eyes narrowed into slits. God, you're such a jerk. Do you ever hear yourself? You sound paranoid. Paranoid. I tilted my head. Nah. Paranoid is putting tin foil on the windows and waiting for the government to read your thoughts. This is just me setting boundaries. You wouldn't know what those are if they smacked you in the face. She threw her hands up like she was surrendering to the cops. God, you're acting like some landlord instead of my boyfriend. I smirked. Funny, because right now you're acting like a tenant who stopped paying rent but still wants perks. That shut her up. Her lips pressed into a thin, angry line, the kind of look you'd expect from someone losing an argument they thought they'd win. Finally, she stormed off to the bedroom and slammed the door like a teenager grounded from Wi-Fi. I sat there on the couch, shaking my head. At the time, I thought I'd shut it down. I thought she'd cool off and realize I wasn't budging on this one. But here's where I underestimated just how messy Addison really was. That wasn't the end of it. Not even close. That was just round one. And Luke? He was only getting started. So, it was a Saturday morning. The kind of morning you plan to do nothing but enjoy the peace you earned. I'd just gotten back from the gym, drenched in sweat, headphones still in my pocket, thinking about a hot shower and maybe some gaming. I open the door, step inside, and instantly my stomach twists. Luke, on my couch, feet propped up on my coffee table like he'd just claimed it in the name of Spain, remote in one hand, shaker bottle in the other. My shaker bottle, full of my protein powder that he clearly just scooped out like he owned stock in it. He grinned at me like I was the intruder. Hey man, he said casually, not a hint of shame. Addison said I could hang out. That's when my brain did that record scratch thing. Imagine walking into your own apartment and finding the one guy you specifically banned sitting there like it was his second home. My name's on the lease. My money pays for everything in that place. And yet here he is, looking way too comfortable, like he's 2 minutes away from asking me to grab him a beer from my own fridge. I glanced toward the kitchen, and sure enough, there's Addison making coffee like this is just any other Saturday morning. No guilt, no shame, just vibes. Like, oh, did you not want your unwanted house guest guzzling your supplements? Weird. What the hell is he doing here? I asked, loud enough to cut through whatever fantasy sitcom world they thought they were living in. Addison barely looked up, calm as a surgeon. Relax. We're just catching up. In my apartment? With my stuff. I snapped, pointing at Captain Protein Shake lounging like a king. Luke leaned back even further into the couch, smirk glued to his face, and said, "Don't be so uptight, dude. You're acting like you own the place." That line almost broke me. I do own the place, I shot back. My name is on the lease. My furniture. My bills. That protein shake you're drinking? I bought it. You're not family. Luke, you're just an unwelcome visitor who doesn't know when to leave. Luke smirked even bigger, like he thought he'd cracked some genius comeback. Funny, Addison told me I was family. You're the visitor now. That was it. It wasn't about the protein powder. It wasn't about the couch. It was about disrespect. That little line was a direct shot at me, and Addison just stood there letting him say it. No defense, no shutting it down, nothing. I stared at him, voice flat. Get out. He stood slow, like moving in slow motion somehow made him look tough. He set the can down on the table, smirk never fading. All right. Chill. I'll go. But you can't keep me away from her. I didn't let him finish. I grabbed him by the neck and dragged him straight to the door. He sputtered, dropped the shaker, tried to swat at my arm, but I was already yanking the door open and shoving him out. He stumbled onto the street, swearing, still trying to puff his chest like this wasn't the most humiliating exit of his life. The second the door slammed shut behind him, I turned to Addison. Why the hell did you bring him into my house after I said no? She crossed her arms so tight it looked like she was bracing for impact. Because it's not just your house. I live here too, and I don't need your permission to have a friend over. Permission? No. I shot back, jabbing a finger at the door like it was a crime scene photo. That wasn't about permission. That was about respect. I told you he wasn't welcome, and you dragged him in anyway. You're being ridiculous, she snapped back, rolling her eyes so hard I thought she'd sprain them. Like I was the one losing it. At that point, I realized this wasn't about Luke being some harmless friend. This was about Addison refusing to respect me. She wasn't oblivious. She wasn't caught in the middle. She was choosing sides, and the side wasn't mine. That night, I didn't ask. I told her. I stood in the doorway, arms folded, and said, no, you don't get the bed tonight. You brought him in after I said no, so you can enjoy the couch. Maybe think about boundaries while you're out there. She gasped like I'd just slapped her with a wet fish. Are you serious? As a heart attack? I said, pulling the blanket from the closet and tossing it at her like I was feeding a zoo animal. Until you figure out how to respect the word no, you're not getting back in here. Call it a lesson in consequences. So, she stomped off, blanket in tow, and curled up on the couch like a sulking teenager. Arms crossed so tight I half expected her bones to fuse together. The irony wasn't lost on me. Luke had been sitting right there that morning, and now she was basically cuddling his ghost out of spite. The week that followed, pure theater. She went full silent treatment, waiting for me to break first. Doors slammed like she was auditioning for a demolition derby. Cabinets got closed with enough force to register on the Richter scale. Every movement screamed, "You're the villain here, Grayson. You monster." I didn't flinch. I wasn't apologizing. I wasn't budging. She thought I'd cave, that I'd eventually sigh and say, fine, let Luke hang around. Let's braid his hair and make him protein shakes. Yeah, no. Instead, I buried myself in work, stayed late at the office, hit the gym like I was training for the Olympics, ran errands longer than necessary. Not to avoid her, but because rewarding her tantrum with my presence sounded like insanity. Coming home felt like walking into the Cold War. Easier to just minimize my exposure to her passive-aggressive Morse code. But the storm was brewing. Luke wasn't the type to fade quietly. His smirk, his little comments. That way he looked at me like the eviction notice was already signed. It was obvious the guy wasn't satisfied just dropping by. Addison had cracked the door for him, and he was lining up his foot to kick it wide open. And I knew then, this wasn't the last time I'd come home to find Luke where he didn't belong. It was the warm-up act. Couple days later, long day at work, traffic sucked. All I wanted was to kick off my boots and breathe in peace. I open the apartment door, step inside, and instantly, my gut drops. Shoes by the door. Not mine. Not Addison's. Big, ugly sneakers that look like they were rescued from a thrift store clearance bin. Then I see a jacket hanging on the coat rack. Again, not mine. My stomach tightened. Walk further in, and there he is. Luke, sitting on my couch like he'd signed a lease, feet up on my coffee table, remote in one hand, flipping through channels like he was hunting for the nightly news or his favorite soap rerun. I stopped in the doorway. Unbelievable. I throw you out once, and here you are again like a stray dog. Get the hell out before I call the cops, I said, pointing at the door like a game show host showing the grand prize. He looked up calm as ever, smirk plastered across his face like it was glued there. Addison said I could crash here for a bit. Her mom's place is crowded. You've got plenty of room. She even gave me a spare key, man. Said it'd be easier this way. A spare key. My eye twitched so hard it could have powered a ceiling fan. Addison was in the kitchen, casual as if she was stirring soup for the guy, the one who actually opened the door for him. No key. No lockpicking. No break-in. She just unlocked the deadbolt herself. That's when the blood in my head started to pound like it was auditioning for a heavy metal band. Not only was Luke in my apartment, not only was he sitting there acting like he owned the place, but Addison, my girlfriend, had handed this clown a spare key to my home without even telling me. She what? I snapped, voice going up an octave like I'd just inhaled helium. Addison stepped out of the bedroom then, arms crossed, casual as can be, like this was a perfectly normal Tuesday. Relax. It's temporary. He just needs a place to stay until he gets on his feet. Oh, well, in that case, I said, throwing my hands up. Let's set up a welcome banner, bake a cake, Maybe even have him pick which side of the bed he wants. Because apparently I live at the YMCA now. She rolled her eyes. Don't be dramatic. Dramatic? No. Furious? Yes. Look, he doesn't live here. He doesn't stay here. This is my home. And I never agreed to this. Luke leaned back even further, smug as hell, like he'd just won some debate on daytime TV. Look, man, you can fight it all you want, but she invited me. You kick me out, you're kicking her out, too. I nodded slowly, even smiled a little. You know what, Luke? For once in your life, you're absolutely right. He looked proud of himself for about 3 seconds, right until I grabbed him by the neck and shoved him toward the door. The smugness drained fast as I pushed him out into the hallway like yesterday's trash. And that's why you're both leaving right now. Addison gasped like I'd just shoved a nun instead of her freeloading ex. I turned to her, calm as a monk. It's better if you walk out yourself, Addison. Because if I have to carry you the way I carried him, it won't be nearly as gentle. Her face went red, her jaw working like she was about to argue, but I just pointed at the door. Choice is yours. Walk, or get dumped the same way. The room went so quiet, even the fridge hum sounded like it was auditioning for a solo. That wasn't a threat. That was a policy. A house rule. No one exempt. Addison's jaw dropped, like I'd just suggested we replace the sofa with a live tiger. Then she exploded. You're unbelievable. He has nowhere else to go. You're really this selfish. He is not my kid, and it's not selfishness. I shot back, voice steady. This is basic respect. You don't hand out keys to my apartment behind my back. That's not just disrespect, it's betrayal. Luke stood near the door, puffing out his chest like some budget action hero warming up for a fight scene. Careful how you talk to her. She deserves better than some control freak who's threatened by a little history. I stepped right up to him, close enough to count his nose pores. My voice dropped low and flat. You need to leave right now, or I send you to the hospital. And trust me, I am not afraid to go to jail for it. We locked eyes, that classic man standoff moment. Only difference was he looked like he'd lost the script. His jaw tightened like he was working up to a swing. For a second, I thought he might actually go for it. Instead, he muttered something that sounded like a bad Wi-Fi signal. Then he walked out. Addison started to pack a bag like she was auditioning for Real Housewives, Eviction Edition. Clothes flying everywhere, drawers slamming, so hard I'm surprised the neighbors didn't call noise complaints. Every move was a performance, loud and dramatic, like she wanted the Academy to notice. Then, one final slam of the door, and she was gone too. For the first time in weeks, silence. Actual silence. I thought maybe that was it. She'd cool off at her mom's, realize she'd crossed a line, and we could hit reset. But nope. 2 days later, while I was at work, my phone buzzed with a ring notification. Motion at the door. I pull up the feed, and there he is, Luke, looking like a raccoon caught in daylight, fumbling with a shiny cheap copy of my key. Spoiler, it didn't work. He only had a knob copy Addison must have made, but I always kept the deadbolt rekeyed and locked. The guy spent a solid minute jiggling it like he was breaking into Fort Knox with a butter knife. Then came the grand finale. Pounding on the door, shouting Addison's name like he was auditioning for Romeo and Juliet, the deadbeat cut. 10 minutes of yelling, rattling, and general failure later, he stomped off frustrated. The second I got home, I called a locksmith. By the end of the night, every single lock was changed, front, back, even the one on the garage that barely worked anyway. I wasn't about to give this guy another shot at breaking in like it was a sitcom, and I was the punchline. Sunday night, Addison shows up. She tries her key. It doesn't work. She rattles it, flips it over like maybe it just forgot how to be a key, then finally pounds on the door like a repo man. I open it. What did you do? She demanded. I changed the locks, I said flatly. Luke doesn't live here, and now neither do you. You don't give out keys behind my back. Her eyes went wide with fury, like I'd just told her Santa was fake. You had no right. I had every right. I shot back. My name is on the lease. My bills. My furniture. My home. You crossed the line. She actually shook with anger, like she was about to level up into Super Saiyan. If you don't let him back, then I'm done. I stared at her for a long moment, deadpan, just letting the silence stretch until she realized I wasn't bluffing. Then I stepped aside. Good. Now get lost, and don't come back. She gasped like I'd just stabbed her in a soap opera. You're really choosing this over me? Yes, you are right, I said, with a laugh sharp enough to cut glass. I'm choosing to dump you because, let's be real, you're not worth the Wi-Fi bill, let alone my sanity. Honestly, Addison, I've had leftovers in the fridge with more respect for me than you've shown. And let's not forget, your breath smells like roadkill marinated in spoiled milk, so don't act like you're some prize. So do us both a favor. Pack up your drama and go audition for whatever reality show takes people who can't spell loyalty. Her face went pale, then red, like she couldn't decide if she was about to faint or explode. She snatched her bag off the floor, stomped down the hall, and slammed the door so hard the frame rattled like it was trying to escape too. I leaned against the counter, finally breathing. It hit me then. This wasn't just about Luke. This was about Addison showing me who she really was. Someone who'd hand over my key to another man, then act like I was the problem for not bowing down to her rules. And the thing is, I wasn't broken up. I wasn't sitting there devastated, wondering how to win her back. I was pissed, sure, but more than that, relieved. Because for the first time in months, I knew exactly where I stood. She picked Luke, and I picked myself. Normally, that should have been the end. Breakups suck, sure, but usually you walk away, block each other, and move on with your life. Not Luke. Oh no, he wasn't built to move on. He was built to linger, like a bad smell in a room you can't air out. The first wave hit 2 nights later. I was sitting on the couch, enjoying the rare sound of silence, when my phone buzzes. Unknown number. The message popped up like a bad jump scare. You didn't win this. You made a huge mistake. I rolled my eyes so hard I almost saw my brain, hit delete, and moved on. 10 minutes later, another text from a new number. She'll always choose me over you. Blocked. That set the pattern. Over the next week, I blocked at least half a dozen numbers. Same tone every time. Same fake tough guy energy. The guy must have been downloading burner apps like they were Pokemon cards, just to keep it going. It was pathetic, like watching someone try to look intimidating while tripping over their own shoelaces. Then came the knocks. 2, 3 in the morning, fists hammering on my door like he was delivering a pizza from hell. I'd sit up in bed, already knowing who it was. By the time I pulled up the ring feed, all I'd catch was his back as he walked away. Same hoodie, same stomping stride. He wasn't even trying to break in. He just wanted me awake, wanted me annoyed. Mission accomplished, jackass. A few days later, he added a new trick. I woke up one morning to find a folded note shoved under my door. It just said, "You can't erase history." No signature, no mystery, no handwriting analysis needed. Luke was trying to be deep, but it read like a fortune cookie written by a stalker. And it didn't stop there. The next night, I came down to the parking lot to head to work, and there he was, leaning against a lamppost near my car, pretending to be on his phone. I didn't acknowledge him. I just walked right past, got in my car, and drove off. But the camera on the dash caught him in the reflection of the windshield, watching me the whole time, eyes locked in like I owed him rent. He even left a voicemail once. Came from some random number, robotic voice distortion, like he thought he was auditioning for CSI, low budget edition. You think you can win, but you already lost. It would have been scary if it wasn't so laughably dramatic. I mean, who does voice modulation apps at 30 years old? I saved it, of course. By then, I was collecting everything. I made a folder on my desktop, timestamps, screenshots, audio files, ring clips. If it wasn't nailed down, I saved it. Not because I planned to win a fight, but because I planned to avoid one I couldn't win. Every text, every voicemail, every knock on the door, stacking receipts like I was preparing a legal case. And the thing is, I wasn't rattled. Not even close. I wasn't scared to leave my apartment or looking over my shoulder like some paranoid extra in a bad thriller. I was annoyed. That's all Luke was. An annoying mosquito buzzing in my ear. Creepy? Yeah. But scary? Please. I've dealt with malfunctioning vending machines scarier than him. Deep down, I knew he was playing a losing game. He wanted me to lash out, lose my cool, engage. Basically, he wanted a full meltdown episode of Grayson Loses His Mind, Season 1. Too bad for him. That show wasn't getting renewed. So I stayed calm, steady, patient, like a monk, but with more sarcasm and worse neighbors. Then came Friday night. Long day at work. Traffic sucked. My blood pressure was higher than my phone bill, and all I wanted was to face plant into my couch. I turned the corner to my apartment, and there it was. Spray paint. Ugly, jagged red letters splashed across my door like a toddler's failed art project. Game over. I stopped, tilted my head, and muttered, well, at least he didn't draw a wiener. Progress. A neighbor peeked his head out from down the hall, looked at my door, then at me, and just shook his head with that universal couldn't-be-me expression before retreating back into his cave. I sighed, pulled out my phone, and said to myself, all right, Sherlock Luke, let's see how dumb you got tonight. Instead of calling the cops first, I emailed the property manager the security clip. Because paper trails talk louder than outrage. And let's be real, outrage just makes you look like a reality TV contestant on elimination night. For half a second, my stomach did clench. I'll admit it. But then I smirked, because I already knew. The camera had him, right there in the hallway. I pulled up the feed on my phone like I was about to watch the season finale of his stupidity. And there he was, put up, spray can in hand, looking directly into the lens like he thought he was auditioning for America's Dumbest Criminals. He shook the can, sprayed my door, stepped back to admire his masterpiece, and then strutted away like Banksy's long-lost idiot cousin. That was the dumbest move he could have made. Up until then, he'd been slinking around in the shadows, pulling petty stunts to rattle me. But with that one glorious act, he handed me solid, undeniable evidence gift-wrapped in HD. So, I did the one thing he didn't expect. I called the cops. I filed a report, handed over the texts, the voicemails, the note, the footage, everything. The officer didn't brush it off either. He took it seriously, wrote it all down, asked questions, and told me they'd follow up. For the first time, it wasn't just me versus Luke's nonsense. It was on record. By the time I hung up the phone, I wasn't angry. I wasn't stressed. I was calm. Luke thought he was in control, thought he was making me lose sleep. But all he'd really done was hand me the rope he was going to hang himself with. It didn't take long for that rope to tighten. Within a week of filing the report, I got a call from the officer I spoke to. They'd reviewed the evidence, the texts, the voicemails, the ring footage, even the little fortune cookie note Luke slid under my door. It was more than enough. They were moving forward. Just to let you know, sir, we'll be serving him papers for harassment, trespassing, and criminal mischief. If he makes contact with you again, call us immediately, the officer said. I thanked him, hung up, and for the first time in weeks, I actually felt relief. Not just because Luke was getting what he deserved, but because I knew now it wasn't just me versus him. It was me with the law on my side and Luke fumbling like an idiot. The next day, I got to see the fallout firsthand. I was leaving for work when I noticed a police cruiser idling near the entrance of the complex. Two officers were talking to someone in the parking lot. And yep, you guessed it. Luke. Hoodie half-zipped like he'd lost the fight with the zipper, arms flailing around like one of those inflatable tube men at a car dealership, trying desperately to argue his way out of reality. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught enough. He kept repeating, "She invited me. She said I could be there. He's just jealous." The officers weren't buying it. One of them tapped a clipboard like he was about to grade Luke's excuses, and the other jerked a thumb toward my building. I didn't stick around to watch the whole tragic soap opera, but I did catch Luke's face when he spotted me walking to my car. Pure hatred. Like I'd just kicked over his Jenga tower of bad decisions. I gave him a little smirk and I gave him a full-on Shawn Michaels style crotch chop, both hands slicing the air like I was closing out WrestleMania, and then turned on my heel to walk away, because why not? The look on Luke's face was priceless. His jaw dropped, his nostrils flared, and he actually stomped his foot like a toddler who'd just been told Chuck E. Cheese was closed. Pure, unfiltered rage, the kind that makes a guy look like he's auditioning for a hemorrhoid cream commercial. By the time I got home that night, he was gone. Later, I learned he'd been officially served and told to stay away from me, my apartment, and my workplace. Apparently, the cops don't hand out stalker punch cards after the fifth offense. And then came the calls. Addison, of course. The first one started with her screaming so loud I had to check if my phone volume was broken. "You didn't have to go that far," she shrieked. "You ruined his life." And I enjoyed it, I said, calm as ever, probably sounding like a customer service rep who'd stopped caring years ago. But in reality, he ruined his own life. I just hit record. "You could have talked to me first," she snapped, like that was the missing step in this little circus. "Talk to you first. Who the hell are you, Jada Pinkett Smith?" I repeated, half laughing. That earned me a new round of sobbing, shouting, and the kind of accusations that would make sense only if I'd also invented time travel and somehow forced Luke into being a creep. Then came the guilt trip attempt. She dragged out every line from the Toxic X starter pack. Eventually, I hung up, blocked her. Felt great. But Addison wasn't done. Oh no. The woman's persistence could have earned her a career in telemarketing. Over the next week, she tried every trick in the book. She showed up at my building once, pounding on my door like she was auditioning for a role as Unhinged and Saber number 3 in a sitcom. A neighbor threatened to call the cops, which, honestly, I would have paid to see. Then came the long emails, novels, really, about how I never understood her bond with Luke. Bond. Please. That bond looked a lot like cheap beer and shared bad decisions. She even tried to spin it like I had broken her trust, which almost made me clap. Gaslighting at Olympic level. The desperation was almost funny. Almost. But the real entertainment came when her world started shrinking. Word travels fast in friend groups, and Addison's drama with Luke had been dragging on long before I entered the picture. People were already tired. Now that Luke had police reports hanging over his head, most of them finally pulled the plug. One of her old friends, who I still occasionally talk to, filled me in. Apparently, they'd been telling Addison for years that Luke was bad news. "He's not a fixer-upper, he's condemned property," they warned her. But Addison, of course, had her noise-canceling headphones on when reality spoke. She just wouldn't listen. Now she's stuck defending him while everyone else quietly exited stage left. Group chats went quiet for her. Invites dried up faster than a cheap wine bottle at her girls' night. Turns out, people don't love being extras in someone else's chaos trilogy. Her family wasn't much better. From what I heard, even her mom flat out told her, "You can't keep blaming everyone else. Luke is toxic. He's dragging you down." Ouch. When your mom starts sounding like Dr. Phil, you know you're in trouble. But Addison? She doubled down, puffed her chest, and insisted they just didn't understand. Suddenly she's Luke's unpaid PR manager, running damage control like she's prepping him for a presidential debate. No, he's really sweet when you get to know him. Yeah, if by sweet you mean Sour Patch Kid stuck to the bottom of your shoe. Meanwhile, I was living like a king in my own space again. No stomping, no slammed cabinets, no ultimatums. Just me, my couch, and the sweet, sweet sound of absolutely nothing. Heaven. But Luke wasn't smart enough to just fade into irrelevance. Even after the cops served him, he had to keep poking the bear. He'd creep around the block in his beat-up car like I wasn't going to notice. One night, he even tried calling me again from a blocked number, leaving this garbled voicemail that sounded like he was talking through a sock. "You'll regret messing with me." "Yeah, sure, buddy." I forwarded it straight to the officer handling my case. "Keep it coming," I told him. "He's basically writing your paperwork for you." A week later, Luke got himself arrested. Charges stuck too: criminal mischief for the spray paint, harassment for the texts and voicemails, trespassing for trying to use the key Addison gave him. Nothing earth-shattering, but enough to land him probation, a record, and a shiny restraining order that kept him 200 feet away from me and my building. When I found out, I cracked open the fridge, grabbed a soda, and toasted myself. Peace. Tasted better than champagne. Of course, Addison absolutely lost her mind. She called me from a new number, because apparently changing phones was easier than changing men. Crying, screaming, cycling through every curse word she could dig up. "You destroyed us. You destroyed him. You never loved me," she wailed like she was auditioning for a soap opera. I just let her go until she ran out of steam. "Finally," I said, "I loved myself enough not to let you and your little monkey run my life into the ground." Then, click. That was the last time I gave her any oxygen. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as the circus folded. Addison's friends ghosted her like she was a subscription they forgot to cancel. Her family stopped covering for her, probably realized the warranty had expired. And Luke? He was too busy juggling probation, community service, and his mandatory check-ins to keep harassing me. Honestly, the guy had a busier schedule than a Walmart cashier on Black Friday. I'd come home at night, lock the door, and actually smile. No smirk waiting on the couch like it owned the place. No extra pair of knockoff sneakers by the door. No Addison humming fake positivity in the kitchen like she was auditioning for a toothpaste commercial. Just quiet. Beautiful, glorious quiet. And that's when it hit me. Peace isn't just the absence of noise. It's the absence of people who treat chaos like a personality trait. And once Addison and Luke were out of my orbit, that peace became addictive. I'd wake up, brew coffee in silence, and sit on my couch like some kind of Zen monk who paid rent. No slamming doors. Number 2 EM text that read like a riddle wrapped in an ultimatum. "No, we need to talk," hovering over my head like a storm cloud. Just me and my coffee, and it was bliss. But people like Addison never disappear clean. Nope. They cling like bad Wi-Fi. You think you're rid of them, but then they pop up buffering right outside your door. It was a Sunday night when I heard the knock. I checked the ring feed, and there she was, Addison. Eyes red, mascara doing its best impression of war paint, holding a bag of takeout from my favorite spot like it was a peace offering. I cracked the door just enough to stand there. "Can we talk?" she whispered, voice cracking like she'd practiced crying in the bathroom mirror and run out of rehearsal time. I shook my head. "No." She blinked, stunned, like I'd just hit her with a pop quiz. "No. That's right. No." Her lips trembled, eyes watering, trying to summon the Academy Award Committee. "I made a mistake," she stammered. "I just didn't want to lose him as a friend." I actually laughed. Not the kind you hide behind your hand, but the kind that comes out sharp enough to sting. "You didn't lose him as a friend, Addison. You lost me as a partner. And you don't even see the difference." Her face twisted like she wanted to argue, but all that came out was a sputter, like a car that couldn't quite start. After a long pause, she shoved the takeout bag into my hands as if dumplings and lo mein were going to magically fix the fact that she'd basically turned my apartment into a community center for guys I explicitly banned. "You're cold. You're heartless," she hissed. "Yeah," I said, nodding like she'd just given me a Yelp review I could live with. "To people who hand out my keys like Halloween candy?" "Absolutely." That's when she snapped. Her eyes went feral, like she'd just unlocked some inner demon, and she stormed past me into the living room. One of my chairs caught the wrath of her hip and went clattering over like it had personally wronged her. She didn't even blink, went straight for the potted plant by the window, hoisted it up like it was a championship trophy, and hurled it against the wall. Ceramic, soil, roots, it all exploded like a cheap piñata. Are you insane? I barked, stepping back before she decided to reenact WrestleMania with my lamp. She was in full meltdown mode now, grabbing another plant and sending it flying. You don't get it. You never get it, she shrieked, though honestly, I wasn't sure if she was talking to me or the ficus she just murdered. Dirt was everywhere. My living room looked less like an apartment and more like a crime scene in Gardener's Digest. Perfect, I muttered under my breath. Guess I won't need to buy potting soil next spring. My neighbors were already poking their heads into the hall, watching the free show. One guy even had popcorn. I pulled out my phone, calm as a monk, and dialed. Yeah, I'd like to report property damage in progress, I said smoothly, eyes never leaving her as she was mid-scream. Ex-girlfriend going berserk. Apartment 304. Thanks. When she realized who I was calling, she froze for half a second, just long enough for me to savor the look on her face. Then shrieked even louder, the sound so sharp it probably cracked a glass somewhere. You're seriously calling the cops on me? She howled. Of course, I said flatly, shrugging like it was the most obvious decision since wearing pants. You and Luke can finally be partners in crime. Literally, that one hit her like a brick. She went beet red, stomped toward the door with the fury of a T-Rex in stilettos, and slammed it hard enough to rattle the frame. 10 minutes later, the cavalry arrived. 2 officers with the exact same expression you'd expect from guys who get paid to deal with lunatics daily. They stepped inside, took one look at the ceramic war zone, and sighed like this was their third fern massacre of the day. I walked them through the carnage, pointed at the dirt on the floor, and said, Yep, that's where she decided photosynthesis was a personal attack. One officer asked if I had proof. Oh, did I ever? I pulled up the ring footage, hit play, and watched their faces as Addison's meltdown unfolded frame by frame. There she was, in glorious 1080p, flinging pots like she was auditioning for a gardening-themed WWE match. Both officers just shook their heads. One muttered, Unbelievable. I grinned and said, I know, right? 5 stars for effort, though. She really committed to the bit. They logged the damage, snapped their own pictures, and added it all to her file. That was the last time Addison ever showed up at my door in person. Small blessings. A week later, word came down that she'd been hit with a misdemeanor charge for property damage. Nothing earth-shattering, just enough to officially stamp her name onto paperwork she couldn't cry her way out of. I'll admit, seeing her get her very own adult report card, graded F for felony light, was satisfying. A couple of her friends found out too, and apparently, the loyalty punch card they'd been using for her finally ran out. From what I heard, they were done covering for her. Even her mom threw in the towel and told her, flat out, she needed help, not excuses. Imagine your mom saying, Sweetie, therapy, not tantrums. That's gotta sting. Luke, on the other hand, was living his best court-mandated life. Thanks to the restraining order, he couldn't exactly swing by with flowers and apologies. Instead, I'd get updates through mutual acquaintances. He was stuck doing community service, had a probation officer breathing down his neck, and even his old drinking buddies stopped hanging out with him because, shocker, no one wanted to deal with his drama. Turns out, life of the party gets old fast when you're also life of the arraignment. Basically, he torched every safety net he thought he had. And then, because the universe has a sense of humor, Addison and Luke ended up back together. A mutual friend told me over coffee, yeah, they're officially a thing again. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my drink. But the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. 2 people addicted to chaos, tangled up in their own dysfunction, feeding off each other's mess. Perfect match. Meanwhile, my life? Oh, it got better. Quieter. Stronger. The kind of better where you actually hear yourself think without someone yelling in the background about how you're controlling just because you don't want her ex sitting on your couch eating your Doritos. After a few months, I dipped my toes back into dating, but this time I was armed with a checklist. No Luke situations. No, but he's like family nonsense. And absolutely no drama addicts. I wanted peace, not a circus. That's when I met Rachel. By date 2, we sat across from each other at a diner, and I just laid it out. Non-negotiables. 10 minutes. Straight to the point. She didn't flinch. She actually joined in. Okay, she said, sipping her coffee. I don't do liars, cheaters, or anyone who thinks Nickelback is underrated. I damn near proposed on the spot. Adults can do that. Talk like adults. No fireworks, no footnotes, no 10-page essays on, what did you mean by that text? Rachel wasn't flashy. She didn't have Addison's wild, chaotic energy, the kind that felt like dating a tornado in high heels. She had something infinitely better, stability. She respected my space. She respected me. She didn't collect exes like they were Pokemon cards. She actually had her own life, her own goals, her own hobbies that didn't involve sabotaging my blood pressure. And the kicker? The first time she came over to my place, she paused at the door, like literally, hand on the knob, and said, "You mind if I bring a friend next week?" My brain short-circuited. I just laughed, not because it was a joke, but because the sheer absurdity of that simple sentence hit me like a slap. Addison had handed out keys behind my back like my place was a public Airbnb. Rachel was asking permission just to bring someone over. Night and day. Our relationship wasn't fireworks and chaos. It was calm. It was respect. It was peace. And peace, after everything, felt like luxury. Sometimes late at night, I'd sit on my couch with a soda in hand, flipping channels, and the memory would creep in. Luke sitting there months ago, smirking like he owned the joint. I'd actually grin, not because I missed a damn thing, but because it was hilarious how far I'd come. Luke thought history gave him permanent VIP access to Addison's life, and by extension, mine. Addison thought love meant letting her ex parade around my living room like it was his second job. They were both wrong. Love without respect is nothing. History without boundaries is poison. I chose boundaries and it saved me. Now, every once in a while, someone who still keeps tabs on Addison will tilt their head and say, "Hey, you ever think about giving her another shot?" Like I'm supposed to break into tears and whisper, "Yes, please, let me back into the clown car." I just laugh. Why would I downgrade? Seriously, going from peace to chaos, from respect to betrayal, from quiet mornings to cops at my door because someone can't control their temper? That's not a love story. That's a court transcript waiting to happen. No thanks, I said to a buddy the last time it came up. I already did my time in the circus. Don't need an encore. The best part is knowing Addison and Luke are still out there, probably fighting about who gets to sit shotgun in whatever train wreck they're currently driving. Probably dragging each other through the same circus they tried to drag me into. One of Addison's old friends swore she overheard them arguing in a grocery store about whose turn it was to buy frozen pizza. Imagine surviving the Titanic and voluntarily boarding the next iceberg cruise. That's them. Let them. They belong in that mess. I've got my own life, my own space, and a girlfriend who doesn't treat boundaries like polite suggestions or cute little speed bumps on the way to chaos. Rachel actually respects my door, my couch, my sanity. Revolutionary, I know. And here's the thing I realized most. Sometimes the best revenge isn't shouting, fighting, or trying to win. It's just closing the door, refusing to let the circus back in. Enjoy your life and enjoy watching them burn their life down. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.